At least 5 people have been killed after Israel airstrikes and drone attacks targeted southern Lebanon today, just hours after a ceasefire between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah group reportedly came into effect. Notably, the renewed violence has raised serious concerns over the durability of the truce and the possibility of further escalation in an already volatile region, despite ongoing international diplomatic efforts in order to stabilize the situation. And according to Lebanese state media, Israel warplanes and drones carried out a series of overnight and early morning strikes across the Nabati region in southern Lebanon. The attacks reportedly hit multiple locations, including residential buildings and infrastructure, causing significant destruction. Artillery shelling was also reported in and around Nabati before dawn, adding to the damage and creating panic among residents who had hoped the ceasefire would finally bring relief after weeks of intense fighting. Well, the strikes come shortly after an agreement was announced on Friday between Israel and Hezbollah to halt hostilities following a sharp escalation in the cross-border violence. A senior U.S. official have confirmed that the ceasefire took effect around 4 p.m. local time on Friday. The agreement was reportedly reached through diplomatic mediation involving the United States and regional partners, including Qatar and Iran, in an effort to prevent further deterioration of security along Lebanon's southern border. However, the latest attacks suggest that the implementation of the ceasefire remains highly fragile, and Lebanese media reported that Israel air raids and drone strikes continued into Saturday morning, hitting several towns and villages across the district and surrounding areas. And according to the locations affected were Harauf, Kafarsar and Arab Salim. Notably, in one incident, a drone strike on a motorcycle reportedly killed one person and injured another, while other strikes caused heavy damage to residential homes and buildings. Local reports also indicated that earlier overnight attacks across the wider region had already killed at least 16 people and injured several others, making it one of the deadliest nights in southern Lebanon in the recent weeks. Some individuals were reported missing under the rubble, raising fears that the final death toll could increase as search and rescue operations continue. Emergency teams have been working through damaged neighborhoods, attempting to locate survivors and recover bodies from the collapsed structures. Eyewitness accounts describe scenes of devastation and confusion following these strikes. Residents reported being jolted awake by the explosions and seeing entire residential blocks reduced to the rubble. Ambulances rushed to the affected areas as medical teams struggled to treat the injured and transport them to the nearby hospitals. Authorities said that several families had been displaced due to the destruction, with many forced to seek shelter elsewhere amid ongoing security concerns. And the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah was intended to halt months of escalating violence along the Lebanon-Israel border, where repeated exchanges of fire had already caused significant casualties on both the sides. The truce was seen as a critical step towards de-escalation, particularly after intense clashes that reportedly left Israel soldiers and multiple Lebanese civilians dead in previous days. However, the latest strikes have cast serious doubt on whether the agreement can hold in practice. And according to the diplomatic reports, the ceasefire was brokered through international mediation efforts involving the US, Qatar, and other regional stakeholders. The agreement is understood to be a part of a broader attempt to reduce tensions in the Middle East and create space for further negotiations on regional security issues. Some reports also suggest that the deal is linked to wider diplomatic understandings involving Iran and the ongoing efforts in order to prevent further regional escalation. And despite the announcement of the truce, both the Israel and Hezbollah have issued warnings over potential violations, reflecting the deep mistrust between the two sides. There has been no immediate official comment from the Israel Defense Forces regarding the latest strikes in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, Lebanese authorities and political leaders have strongly condemned the renewed attacks, warning that continued violations could undermine the entire ceasefire arrangement and plunge the region back into full-scale conflict. And the fragile situation on the ground comes at a time of heightened diplomatic activity in the region. International actors are actively engaged in an effort to prevent further escalation, with attention also focused on parallel negotiations involving the United States and Iran. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi are also expected to travel to Switzerland for high-level discussions that is aimed at reviving stalled negotiations related to Iran's nuclear program and broader regional security concerns. Well, the overlap between these diplomatic tracks highlights the complexity of the current geopolitical environment, where developments in one arena are directly influencing tensions in another. Analysts warn that continued instability in Lebanon could have wider implications for ongoing negotiations elsewhere. particularly if the ceasefire collapses completely. And on the ground in southern Lebanon, rescue and recovery operations are continuing as authorities assess the full extent of the damage. Emergency services remain deployed across affected areas, working to clear rubble, locate missing persons and provide medical assistance to the injured. Hospitals in the region are reportedly under pressure due to the influx of casualties. And as the situation develops, concerns remain high that further strikes or retaliatory actions could follow, potentially triggering another cycle of escalation despite the declared ceasefire. And with both the sides maintaining military readiness and tensions still elevated, the future of the truce remains uncertain. And for now, southern Lebanon remains on edge, with communities living in destruction and uncertainty, while international mediators continue efforts to preserve the fragile ceasefire and prevent the conflict from spiraling further out of the control. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe to the channel.